In this section, we're going to look at some of the most useful strategies and techniques related to the picture editing portion of cutting a fight scene. To be clear, by picture editing, I'm referring only to the video element, not the audio. We'll talk about sound design and music editing for fight scenes in the next section. Please keep in mind that all these techniques can be applied to almost any type of action scene that you find yourself working on. These are core editing skills and tips that will serve you well on a lot of different projects. So, as you might expect, editing a fight scene requires you to be adept at most of the fundamental editing skills, such as cutting on movement, developing a rhythm, paying attention to continuity, and other basic techniques. Here are 4 picture editing techniques that you'll find particularly useful while editing a fight scene. Matching motion, letting the scene breathe, increasing the impacts, and using speed effects. Let's take a closer look at each technique. The first technique you'll be using a lot is matching motion. Matching motion can be done by cutting between alternating camera angles, or by varying the camera distance of shots during the course of an attack. First, let's take a look at what I mean by alternating camera angles. Generally in a fight, whenever an attack is initiated, you'll see it first from one angle, and then halfway through the motion of the attack, you'll be cutting to an opposite angle shot as the punch or kick lands. The function of this is to accomplish 3 main things. First, alternating camera angles will increase the pace of the scene. There will be certain times when you want to give the fight a bit more energy and a feeling of movement to it. By cutting between alternating angles, the fight will feel a bit more frenetic and the action will appear more exciting than if it was only shown from one angle. Second, you'll be able to smooth out the choreography. There's going to be many times when a punch, kick, or other attack might not look completely convincing or exciting when played from only one camera angle. However, when you play it from multiple angles, cutting in between them during the course of an actual attack, you'll be able to hide any misses and make sure the move looks completely realistic in the context of the scene. And third, by alternating camera angles during attacks in a fight scene, you'll be able to provide more information about the fight. From one angle, you'll be able to see the attacker as he approaches his opponent. You'll get at least a glimpse of his facial expression, and you'll get a feeling for his general pattern of movement and the intensity of the incoming attack. From the opposite angle, you'll be able to see the defender reacting to his opponent's attack as he either gets hit, dodges, blocks, or counters the attack. Matching motion with alternating camera angles is a very basic but vital component to the picture editing portion of cutting a fight scene, and you'll be using it a lot. Alright, so varying the camera distance between shots is also a good opportunity to match motion during a fight. Just like the alternating angles from one shot to the next allows you to add energy to the cut and provide more visual information, varying the camera distance allows you to add a bit more impact to the cut, and clearly show an attack landing and making powerful and substantial contact with the other fighter through the use of close-ups. So let's take a quick look at an example. We've looked at this scene before for a good example of alternating camera angles, but it also has a good example of varying camera distance. Here, you have a medium shot of a fighter as he begins to throw a punch. The camera angle is looking over the shoulder of the attacker towards his opponent. Now, as the punch gets closer to the face of the opponent, we cut to a close-up shot of the punch actually landing and making contact with the other fighter's face. Both the first and second shot are from a similar camera angle, but the distance has been varied from one shot to the next. As long as the motion is matched across the cut, the edit will feel invisible and will add excitement and information to the scene. Another picture editing technique you'll need to use when cutting together a fight scene is learning how to let your scene breathe. So, what do I mean by breathe? Well, if we were watching a fight scene that was just non-stop punches, kicks, and attacks, we'd quickly become visually fatigued and experience sensory overload. It'll stop being fun and exciting, and we'll become immune and numb to what's going on. In order for the scene to keep our interest, we need to incorporate brief periods of rest throughout the scene. So how do we do that? One way is to cut out to a wide re-establishing shot. After a few back and forth exchanges between your combatants, you can cut back out to a wide shot to show the aftermath of a really brutal attack, or the fighters circling each other and getting ready for another series of attacks. Another way to let the scene breathe, as well as to provide a bit more of context and emotional feedback, is to use reaction shots. Reaction shots can be anything from footage of a crowd cheering, to close-up shots of individual bystanders or friends looking on with concern, admiration, fear, or any other appropriate emotion. Seeing a shot of a woman gasping and putting her hand to her chest as her husband stumbles from a powerful punch is a great way to momentarily pause the action and let the viewer know that the hero might not be doing so well. Keep in mind that reaction shots can be used in the same way for all types of action scenes you might be cutting. Keeping the viewer in touch with the emotions of the characters in a film as they react to any sort of high-intensity moment will always improve your cut. The last way to let your scene breathe that I'm going to mention here is to allow your characters to speak some lines. Often, this will be incorporated into the script before the fight is even shot.
Who makes all these?
These lines can help develop the characters.
I do! And I practice with them 3 hours a day!
Add a bit of humor to the scene.
You need to find yourself a girl, mate.
Or provide important bits of story and plot information.
Or, perhaps the reason you practice 3 hours a day is that you already found one and are otherwise incapable of wooing said strumpers.
It'll also help you break up the constant stream of action. Using a combination of these types of momentary breaks in the fight is going to keep your viewer engaged in the scene. They're going to stay fully aware of what's happening and completely in touch with the emotional significance of each event during a fight, because they'll actually have time to process it. So here's another cool picture editing tip that you can use when editing your fight scene. In order to make the punches and kicks feel a bit snappier and more powerful, you can remove a frame or two right at the point of contact. So, just as a fist is contacting with the face of another guy, you can try removing one frame. This will give the illusion of a violent snap as the punch lands, and the recoil of the head will occur that much sooner and more quickly. This is also a great way to hide any sort of choreography issues where a faked punch might appear as a miss instead of an actual hit. Another good picture editing skill to keep in your arsenal for fight scene editing is the speed effect. Using slow motion and speed effects can enhance the drama of the scene, help attacks appear more powerful, highlight certain moves, and create some interesting variety and contrast in the pacing of the scene. So in this lesson, we learned a bunch of picture editing tips that we can use when editing a fight scene. We learned that matching motion between shots while varying camera angles and distances is a great way to add excitement and additional visual information to a cut. Then, we learned the benefit of letting the scene breathe through the use of wide shots, reactions, and character dialogue. We also looked at a great way to increase the impact of a punch or kick by removing 1 or 2 frames at the point of contact. And last, we discussed some of the benefits to both fast and slow motion effects in a fight scene. Don't worry if you feel a little overwhelmed by all these techniques and suggestions. We'll be going over all of them step by step in detail when we begin the actual editing portion of the fight scene later in this course. For now, just be aware that there's a lot of useful picture editing tricks that you can use to enhance your fight scene and give it a little extra polish and flair. In the next section, we'll discuss some cool sound editing tips and techniques. See you in a bit.